On this episode of Locked On Angels, we're convinced that the only way to get Artie to change is to go after his ego, and we're going to explain what we mean. Also, how did the Halos use the DH this year? We had some thoughts earlier this year, so did you. We'll share some stats as to what they actually did with the DH, and it looks like the Halos have a great supporting cast, but do they have any difference makers? We have a lot to chat about. It's time to get locked on with Mike and John, and this is Locked On Angels.
You are Locked On Angels, your daily Los Angeles Angels podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. You can find us anywhere you get your podcasts, including Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and SiriusXM by searching Locked On Angels. And if you'd like to get back to the Super Halo Bros for all the Super Halo content, here's some things that you can do. Leave us a rate and a review on Apple Podcasts. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that thumbs up button. And if you're not subscribed already, please subscribe and become a Locked On Everydayer. And whether you're watching or listening, come over to YouTube, leave a comment. It's one of the best ways to get in touch with John and I and be a part of the conversation. And this episode of Locked On Angels is brought to you by Booking.com. Yeah, the right stay can make you a fan of any city, including your baseball rival city. Book today on Booking.com, the official accommodation partner of Major League Baseball. Get the Booking.com app today.
Happy Tuesday to you, and thanks for being here for this episode of Locked On Angels, where it's your team every day. You've got the Frisch Brothers here with you, a.k.a. the Super Halo Bros. My name is John, and that's my brother Mike.
And my name is Mike, and that's my brother John.
Hey, it's our third season here at Locked On Angels. This is the last week of play for the season. Of course, we'll be continuing our conversation on the Halos 5 days a week, Monday through Friday. We'll be here for you, even after they pack their bags and head off to wherever they're heading off for the off season, Mike. But because yesterday was an off day, it gives us an opportunity to kind of address some topics that have been going around Angel fandom, including how did the Halos end up using the DH in 2024? We'll get into the numbers there. Who's the supporting cast and who are the superstars on this team? But first, Michael, the only way to enact real change with this team, we know, is if things change with Arte Moreno. So what's the path to change?
Well, you know, you're so vain, Artie. You probably think this team is about you. Let's talk about Artie's ego, right? Last week, there was a great article in The Athletic, John, that spoke about the White Sox season and the owner, Jerry Reinsdorf, and it was called "An Owner Who Thinks He Knows Everything Led the White Sox to Historic Disaster."
I love it. I
know it's a long title for an article, and I know you're a writer and you probably don't want a long title. I think that title's perfect. What do you think?
That's acceptable.
Is that acceptable?
Yeah, 100%.
Now, we've talked about this particular article on Fan Mail Friday, last Friday on Locked On Angels. It was very critical of Jerry Reinsdorf, and a lot of criticism about Jerry Reinsdorf can also be thrown at Arte Moreno. It's a guy who loves the game but hasn't done enough to keep his organization winning and focused on the game and successful in the game. Artie didn't really win a World Series with the Angels. He did buy the team after they won a World Series, but he's kind of coasted on those early years. And Reinsdorf, he's done the same thing with the White Sox, right, Johnny?
Yeah, absolutely. They've kind of coasted on their laurels there. Now, the same day that the article came out, White Sox Dave from Barstool Sports on Twitter posted, "Text I just got. Jerry called a meeting with the front office to discuss the contents of the Ken Rosenthal and Britt Giraldi article," to which I retweeted it, Mike, from Locked On Angels and said, "And this is why we need national media, more than just Angel fans, more than podcasts like us. We need national media to do some heavy lifting here." The Reinsdorf article moved the needle, and the same could be done for the Halos. So did it end up moving the needle for the White Sox, Mike?
Yeah, Francis Romero on Twitter, the Chicago White Sox, he tweeted this. The Chicago White Sox named assistant GM David Keller as head to run the international scouting department, as reported by Bob Nightingale. The department is in a restructuring and is expected to hire a director or similar position before November. Francis further reported that the White Sox have more hires coming in regards to the international scouting.
So this led to our question of whether or not Artie would even care if national media called him out based on what happened to Reinsdorf. And some people thought yes, some everydayers thought no, it wouldn't matter. Mike, our answer is yes.
Yes.
Because the only path to meaningful change is through Artie's ego. And we all know that the meaningful change, the thing that needs to happen, is that he needs to sell the team. And the reason why the only way he'll be affected and want to change is through his ego. We have a couple of reasons why, don't we?
Yeah. The team's record, it doesn't seem like it's going to make a difference,
No.
right? 9 straight losing seasons, and potentially this year, the worst record in franchise history with Arte Moreno's signature at the bottom of that. It hasn't changed the major league team in any significant way.
No.
Now, to be fair, it has changed in terms of keeping Perry Manassian and helping develop and continue to help develop the minor league system. So that was a good decision. Also, Johnny, the don't go to games really doesn't make a difference for Arte as well, because payroll was cut this year, and Arte said that was intentional. And he knew that it was going to happen because there weren't going to be the big crowds, because there wasn't going to be this guy named Shohei Ohtani on the team in 2024. And so Arte and company, John Carpino, all that crew, they just adjusted and they cut team payroll knowing that they wouldn't make as much. And all indications right now is attendance is down this year, but they're still 13th in the league, like 23 and 22, 2023 and 2022. So that's something that you and I've talked about often, how Angel fans will still show up and love this team.
Yes.
Even if we don't, that doesn't move the needle for Arte Moreno.
It won't move the needle in terms of spending, because you can have great guys on your team and the attendance is going to stay the same. So what that tells me is the fans are still going to turn out. I know that the argument is you got to stop going to games, just got to stop padding his payroll and padding his pockets. But the thing is, Mike, he adjusted, and I'm shocked that a billionaire adjusted to the market, essentially, right? I mean, he's a billionaire. He's always going to win the money battle, especially when it comes to the fans. And so again, the path to making change happen in this organization, I don't think is through attendance. The only meaningful change for the Angels is if Arte sells the team. And to that, you got to hit his ego.
Yeah.
He got booed during this year's Calling All Angels intro at the beginning of the season. So what did they do? They took him out of it.
Yeah.
He rarely makes appearances at the stadium for ceremonies or things like that. I think the last thing he showed up to was was Ohtani's MVP, accepting that, or perhaps it was a different award that Ohtani got. But basically, that's the last time I can remember being him being present for something. And personally, this is a anecdotal thing, but the organization knows that we've been critical of Arte on our show, and of course other podcasts and Angel fan base, content creators. We've all been critical, and I'm not going to get into the specifics, but let me just say that the team was a lot more inviting before we finished our first year of Locked On Angels, and had a lot to say regarding Arte Moreno putting the team on the market and then taking it off, and then our responses to that. We've seen a noticeable change in the way that the team interacts with Angels content creators because of that fact.
Yeah. Now, all this points to, this is why you got to go after the ego, right? Because we need more fans to be critical of Arte on social media. We need bigger platforms than Locked On Angels to share criticisms. We need writers like Ken Rosenthal to write articles like the Jerry Reinsdorf article. We need the national media to be critical of how he's handled the Angels. And to be clear, not dehumanizing him, not thrashing him, none of that stuff. And I don't think that that's appropriate at all, because he is a human, right? However, we do need to go after the thing that he seems to be sensitive in, and that is his ego, where he's not dearly and utterly loved. And there's every reason for him not to be, because Angel fans have been really frustrated with what's happened with this team, and specifically this year. The buy and we're going to go after this and we're going to run down the West and all that language out there, that's not just the organization making that language up. What that is coming from the top down. We're going to go do the best we can with pennies on the dollar. And that's just not going to work in Anaheim. This is a large market, and it's not treated as a large market. And also, to be clear, this isn't about Arte Moreno not being willing to spend.
Right.
This is about Arte Moreno spending in the wrong areas, at the wrong place, at the wrong time. The spending needs to adjust, and the resources need to adjust. It doesn't seem like that will adjust because he is going to continue to look at the bottom line. The only thing that has moved the needle, Johnny, according to what we've seen and what we've heard and what we've experienced, is if you go after that ego of Arte Moreno.
Yeah, the ego is the only evidence we have that change can happen when you go after it. And when you look at what happened to Reinsdorf and you consider how similar they are in terms of their ownership, I mean, if that Athletic article moved Reinsdorf to call a meeting and make some changes, then I think it stands to reason that the same sort of article, the same sort of rundown of how Arte Moreno has run this team, I think that would move Arte to change,
Sure.
or even better, sell the team, Mike. And that's the thing. Like you brought it up. I think it's important not to attack a person, not to attack who they are, that sort of thing. But when it comes to running this team, it's been an utter failure.
Yeah.
And you see that he enjoyed the benefit of what was before him for 10 years. And then once Arte started making his own decisions with his own people in their own positions, things went downhill. And
Yes.
you can point to 2011 when things
Yes.
really started to change, right?
Yes. And I don't think I need to say this, but I'm going to say this. The reason why you and I are frustrated and why many everydayers and Angel fans are frustrated is because Arte has used this team to make money.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what good businessmen do. I get it.
Of course.
And so if that's who you want to be, Arte, be that guy owning a different business, because this team is a team that we love, is a team that we're going to cheer for. These players are players that we love and that we're going to cheer for. We even like GNPM. We even like what he has been able to do. That's the tension. You are not running this team to win. You're running this team to make money. We're asking you to stop. And it only seems like the way that it will stop is if you sell this team, make your billions of dollars.
Mhm.
Arte, you're going to make so much money selling this team.
Mhm.
So do that. Stop using this team as a piggy bank and go and figure out how you can do that somewhere else. You've done that all your life. You can do it again, and you'll have the resource when you sell this team to do it again. So to be clear, that's really what this boils down to. Stop using our favorite team that we want to root for, that we want to cheer for, that we want to celebrate. We want to see another winning season, another World Series. Stop using our team to line your bank account. Stop using our team as a piggy bank for you. And it's time to move on. And that would be the best decision that you could make for all Angel fans. And we at Locked On Angels will applaud that decision. We'll stop going after your ego, and we will celebrate you as an owner of the Angels in the past.
Well said, my friend. Well said. Yeah, one of the best all-time rants here on Locked On Angels. Hey, thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. The Angels are playing the White Sox 4:40 Pacific time in Chicago. You can catch every pitch of the Angels' hometown broadcast with SiriusXM on the SXM app. All you have to do is search Angels. What do you say, Mike? We go 18 innings this week with the White Sox? How about that?
Please no.
Coming up on Locked On Angels, do the Angels have their quote-unquote supporting cast, and what do they need to make this team competitive next year? We'll talk about it coming right up.
You ever open the hood of your vehicle, you're going to work on it, you need to get a part, you're not sure where to get the part from, you can't go to the local store because the local store doesn't have the part that you have because you got a fancy car because you're fancy? Well, no problem. ebaymotors.com has got your back. They have everything that you need to maintain your vehicle and even level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, so much more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. Johnny, they have over 122 million parts for all kinds of cars, so you're going to find exactly what you're looking for. And they have the eBay Guarantee Fit, which is a great thing because they guarantee that the part that you get will fit your ride every single time, or they're going to refund your money. I love that. With all the parts that you need, the prices that you want, it's easy to turn your car into an MVP and bring home that win. So keep your car, your truck, or your SUV alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions do apply. And the eBay Guarantee Fit is only available to U.S. customers.
This is the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. And everydayers, you are invited to join us at the O'Hoppe All-Star Bowl. It's taking place October 5th. It's a Saturday at Cow Bowl in Lakewood. We're going to be bowling together with Logan O'Hoppe and his teammates. They're going to be bowling with us and against us. Mike and I are going to be there leading our teams, and we'll have some Super Halo Bros merch there for you as well. If you're interested in coming, you can click the link in the episode description And when you do, use our promo code BROS, BROS, at checkout to get $50 off your ticket. All the proceeds are going toward Corey's Promise. It's a nonprofit that walks alongside families whose children are dealing with pediatric cancer. They help offset the cost. They meet their needs and do the things that they need in such a trying time. Incredible organization, incredible nonprofit. All the proceeds are going toward that. So please get your tickets in the episode description. The link's there for you. And join us at the O'Hoppe All-Star Bowl.
Johnny, over the years, the Angels have had the big star or a couple of big stars, and then they've had really mediocre players.
Stars and scrubs,
them.
right?
Yes, absolutely. And there was one season where a lot of the guys didn't even average 0 WAR. they weren't even there, right? And so they weren't even your average major league player. But this season, we're starting to see glimpses, and I wouldn't even say glimpses. We're starting to really see that the Angels have a supporting cast. And like, for example, this last weekend, we saw Logan O'Hoppe become the 4th Angel to hit 20 or more home runs, along with Zach Neto, Taylor Ward, Joe Adell. Below that is Mickey Moniak and Nolan Shonowell. Moniak has 14 home runs. Shonowell has 13 home runs. And beyond that, you have guys who are injured like Trout and Rengifo, who played above league average. Trout had a 139 weighted runs created plus, 39% better than league average. Rengifo, 117 WRC plus. Neto had a 114 weighted runs created plus. Ward, 114. Shonowell, 106. O'Hoppe's at 99. And Adell is at 90. So on the offensive side, John, there's a lot of good supporting cast on this team that we haven't had in years past.
And I would look to O'Hoppe and Adell really sinking below league average because of like Adell's, slump that he was going through.
Yeah.
O'Hoppe's recent slump. Hopefully he's busted out of that. I think that that's more of an aberration. I think that's more of O'Hoppe's tired. Adell was making changes at the plate. I think that they can be at least league average, especially Logan O'Hoppe. Now, looking at the pitching, Mike, 2 starters locked into the rotation for next year. Tyler Anderson had an ERA plus of 112. That means he's 12% league better than league average. Jose Soriano, I think, is a lock for the rotation, an ERA plus of 122, 22% better than league average. I would even say that Kohanowitz has pitched his way into the rotation as well, although his ERA plus is only 92, which is below league average, but I think that has more to do with his bad starts.
Yeah.
His first 2 bad starts. At the bullpen, this is incredible. Ben Joyce has a 202 ERA plus. That's 102% better than league average.
Wow.
Jose Quijada, this will shock you, 220 ERA plus. Now, that's of course a small sample size.
Sure.
Ryan Zefferjon, 173 ERA plus. Jose Marte, who's currently on the IL, had a great season, 182 ERA plus. Mike, I think guys like Brock Burke, who could stick around with the Angels, he's a lefty, 139 ERA plus. Hans Kraus had a 148 ERA plus. Even the fringy guys in the bullpen who could come back if the Angels wanted them to. Ronzi Contreras, 105 ERA plus. Gio Zuniga, 99. And then Ryan Miller, I know he's struggled recently, but he's looked good out of the pen. He's got an 82 ERA plus. So, Mike, I kind of put it in terms of this way. This season, with this cast of characters, the guys that we've been running out there, has been a spinoff. Not a successful spinoff like Frasier spinning off from Cheers, or maybe Better Call Saul spinning off from Breaking Bad. They're more like Joey spinning off from Friends. Remember Joey?
I do. Yep.
And it didn't last very long, did it?
Yeah. Well, it came from Friends, and Friends is trash anyway.
Now, the Angels, in our argument here, is, like you said, in years past, they've had stars and scrubs, guys who can't even do league average.
Yeah.
It almost feels like, man, if the 2024 roster had Mike Trout and Shohei Ohtani of the last few years, it could have been a much different season.
Yeah.
They're missing the difference makers. Mike Trout is supposed to be a difference maker. Anthony Rendon was supposed to be a difference maker. I think Zach Neto is becoming a difference maker. Ben Joyce in the bullpen, he's growing into a difference maker. He might already be one. And so, to me, I think they have the supporting cast. They're just missing the headliners, right?
Yeah. And so where are they missing difference makers first? In the lineup. You just mentioned a lot of bats. I mentioned a lot of stats, right? They have a great supporting staff, but they don't have that threat, that big bat in the lineup, whether that's Trout or someone that they add over the offseason. We've talked often about the wrong guy coming up at the wrong time, and then it's suddenly Jack Lopez with the bases loaded and the game on the line, and that's not what you want, right? And that's the tension with this lineup, and even the starting rotation. The biggest area of need has always been a top 1 or 2 pitcher in this starting rotation to go along with guys like Soriano, Anderson, and possibly Kohanowitz. Johnny, we have a lot of 4s and 5s, right? Maybe threes. But what the Angels wanted us to believe, and I'll throw it back to what we talked about in the offseason, they wanted us to believe that they had a lot of really top-tier starters in Sandoval and Detmers. And what we talked about was, well, if they end up being top-tier starters, they're going to have to play out of their minds to get there. They're going to have to do record-setting innings and record-setting ERA, just things that they haven't done yet that would almost seem like that feels a bit fishy and a bit impossible. And we found out this year it was both, right?
Yeah, it was quite a reach to expect somebody in this rotation coming into the season to even get 200 innings. And I don't think anybody's even accomplished that. That's actually a hard feat in MLB these days. And if you adjust it to kind of what is the old comp to 200 is about 180 right now. So if you're a 180 guy, that's an accomplishment. But Mike, the difference makers in the rotation next season, I think Soriano can become one. But again, you're asking somebody to play up to somewhere they've never been before. I don't think it's Detmers. I don't think it's Griffin Canning. It's certainly not Jose Suarez.
No.
And so they cannot go down this road again without having a difference maker. Now, the bullpen, I think, is the one area
it's shocking, yes,
that they could be good in next year and don't really need to add anyone. Again, they have a young staff in the bullpen, and I think if they add 1 or 2 pieces, even Robert Stevenson coming back, toward May, June, July, whatever that might be, would be a huge boon for them. But again, I think that's the one area you don't need to add a difference maker to. But I wanted to kind of prove this point further by looking at some of the playoff teams in contention right now. So let me take you to the Royals and the difference makers they have in their lineup that are hitters. Obviously, Bobby Witt, 170 weighted runs created plus. Salvador Perez, 116. Even Vinny Pasquantino, 108 weighted runs created plus. Mike, everybody else in that lineup is league average or below. But the key to the Royals here, and this is what the Angels sorely need, is their rotation. Seth Lugo, 140 ERA plus. Cole Reagans, 131 ERA plus. Brady Singer, 114. Michael Wacha, 129 ERA plus. The Angels could have easily gotten Seth Lugo and Michael Wacha.
Thank you. You stole the words right out of my mouth. I was going to say 2 guys that they could have easily signed this offseason for a reasonable cost, right?
No kidding. Yeah, exactly. The Padres, Mike, why don't you tell us the difference makers there?
Yeah, Druxton Profar has a 143 weighted runs created plus.
Who would have seen that coming with
Nobody.
Profar? Good
grief.
grief.
Of course, Tatis Jr., he was hurt this year, but he had a 138 weighted runs created plus. Jackson Merrill's having a killer season.
Yes.
131 weighted runs created plus. Machado's on there with 123. Luis Ariz. I love Luis Ariz. If we can get him and put him in our lineup, I would be so excited. 113 weighted runs created plus. And then they're pitching. John, their starting rotation. Michael King, 135 ERA plus. Yu Darvish was hurt this year, 130 ERA plus. Dylan Cease, 120 ERA plus. And somehow, Martin Perez, who's had 9 starts since being traded to the Padres, has a 159 ERA plus.
Good
How about
grief,
that?
man? So to me, the Padres have way more headliners in difference makers in their lineups, in their rotation. But Mike, going back to the Royals, it really is Bobby Witt and Salvi Perez, and then a supporting cast behind them. Mike, is it a fair assessment to call this 2024 roster a spinoff roster, a supporting cast roster, and that they're missing difference makers?
Yes, I agree with that. However, I would say with this caveat, I think Zach Neto and I think Logan O'Hoppe could be the superstars, the difference makers moving forward. I think a good supporting cast is someone like Nolan Shonowell. I think he's going to hit for a higher batting average. He might have a bit more home runs over the years, but I think he's going to be a guy that stretches the lineup, but isn't going to be a huge threat in the lineup. I think it's going to be Neto. I think it's going to be O'Hoppe. And I'm going to go on a limb here, and I'm going to throw Joe Adell into that category if he continues to do what he did at the end of this last season.
Yeah, superstar potential from O'Hoppe. and Neto, essentially replacing the superstar potential that we want from Trout and Rendon, while everyone else has proved to be a great supporting cast. I think the Angels are only missing a couple of headliners that could really take them a long way, especially in the rotation. They've got to figure that out moving into next season.
Locked On Angels is brought to you by Booking.com. Booking.yeah, you can explore U.S. cities that you've always secretly wanted to learn more about with hotels, bed and breakfast, vacation rentals, and resorts, so much more on Booking.com. You might just find your perfect stay, and it might just be in a city that your rival baseball team is in. And it's not for the Angels, you're not going to be in the postseason, but maybe for other teams, right? Maybe it's time to taste test your baseball competition's stadium cuisine. And with Booking.com, you can find the right stadium stay perfect for you. With Booking.com, they have a wide variety of choice across the United States. You can go incognito to all of your baseball rival cities, no matter which team you're rooting for this postseason. Booking.com can make you a fan of any U.S. city. Booking.com, Booking.yeah.
And today's show is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. NFL fans, you can start this season. I know we're a couple weeks in, but you can make your big return on FanDuel. It's America's #1 sports book. When you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats and also view live play-by-play and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Mike, I'm a 2-screen computer guy. I need a screen in front of me and a second screen over here. That's why you always see me looking off this way. And you can do the exact same thing on FanDuel. They got the game in front of you, the stats in front of you, and the bets that you want to make in front of you. You can get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com, because FanDuel is America's #1 sportsbook.
One of the key talking points this last offseason was how the Angels would use the DH spot now that Shohei Ohtani was not on this team. And so it included a conversation about how we could have Mike Trout DH and maybe Rendon DH, get them off their feet, keep them healthy. We even talked about Logan O'Hoppe using that spot, keeping him healthy, like the Orioles do with Adley Rutschman. We even thought that using the DH to keep the crowded outfield in the lineup would help, with Moniak, Adele, Ward getting some days off, but they could stay in the order. Even Rengifo, Johnny, whose infielding wasn't great coming into this season, started to get a bit better. His bat obviously was a key in this lineup, and that DH spot was a great spot for him to slot into. In fact, this was one of the biggest reasons why we were like, maybe we need to pause on like a Teoscar Hernandez or a JD Martinez and them getting signed, because that would just clog up the DH role. Turns out the Dodgers made Teoscar and Shohei work fantastic together, right?
Yeah.
Hernandez has played in the outfield every single game, has really been great this year. And so is JD Martinez. He's DH'd in all of his games with the Mets, but he hasn't had a great season like in years past. 16 home runs, 69 RBIs, 106 OPS plus, 6% better than league average, although that would look great in our lineup right now. But these were reasons why we were like, let's pause on getting a DH, because we could use it as a rotating spot, keeping guys healthy, all of those things. So, John, did the Angels do that?
That was the big thing we wanted them to do, was make the most out of it. And diving into the numbers, Mike, I don't think that they did. And here's why. O'Hoppe used it 5 times. Theis has used it 5 times. Trout used it 5 times in the 29 games that he played. Rendon used it 6 times in the 57 games that he played this year. Adele never used it. Rengifo never used it. Moniak used it twice. Ward actually used it 15 times. Drury has used it 12 times, surprisingly. I know that he was dealing with a lot of hip stuff and leg stuff, so that could have been a big reason why. Shawnuel's just used it once. Kevin Pillar twice. And then since coming over at the trade deadline, Nico Cavadas has been the primary DH. He started 21 out of 24 games as the DH. But talk about some of the other ways the Angels used the DH this year.
Aaron Hicks, John, was a DH 5 times out of 18 games that he got into this season. Miguel Sano, 8 times out of the 21 games that he got into before he got hurt. The DH spot was used a lot by Willie Calhoun, 57 starts in 63 games. Cole Tucker got 4 DH starts.
Cole Tucker got 4 DH spots?
Yeah. And then
yeah, the big bat threat of Cole Tucker getting the DH spot.
They thought his hair was going to distract the pitcher. Keston Hiura had 3 DH starts. Even Charles LeBlanc, John, he got 1 DH start.
Yeah. So where did all the DHs go, Mike? Where did all the DH uses go? Oh, wow, what a reference.
Where have all the DH gone? Oh. Sorry. Okay, back to show.
36% of this year's DH starts went to Willie Calhoun. 33% went to guys who started the year on the roster, and you would expect them to be on the roster all season long. Trout, Rendon, O'Hoppe, Ward, Theis, Drury, all that. So guys that like you came into 2024 knowing this is our 26-man roster, right? And so 33% of the spots went to those kind of guys. 13% have gone to Nico Cavadas, again, since he came over. And then 13% went to guys who are no longer on the 26-man roster, guys who were either optioned or DFA'd. This is the biggest issue to me. If you want to put this in percentages, here's what it looks like. Logan O'Hoppe has DH'd 3% of the Angels games. Moniak has DH'd 1% of the Angels games. Ward, 9%. Now, Trout, to be fair, used it in 17% of the games he played. That was 5 games out of 29 starts. Rendon used it in 10% of his games, 6 out of 57 starts. Never used once for Adele or Rengifo. So my question to you, is this really the way the DH should have been used this year? If they're not going to spread the DH wealth, as they clearly didn't, then why don't they actually sign a guy they can use at DH instead of giving 36% of the DH starts to Willie Calhoun? What do you say?
Yeah, I think a lot of this had to do with the focus of the player on the field, because Mike Trout has talked about how he struggled being a DH on days where he's not in the field, and the stats affirm that. And I wonder if the same is true for someone like a Logan O'Hoppe and someone like a Louis Rengifo and even a Joe Adele. Also, O'Hoppe and Adele are some of your best options for catcher and outfielder, and so maybe that's why they weren't in that rotation. The truth is, Johnny, I think that the Angels need to decide what they're going to do with this position and not just keep it open-ended. I think they need to decide if they're going to get a big bat and slot somebody in there, because that is what this lineup needs. It needs one more really strong bat that probably can just focus on hitting, right? Like maybe a DH that hits left-handed and can hit a lot of home runs and steal some bases, you know?
It's like, if only there was somebody that was well done. You had me going. You had me in the first half, not gonna lie.
I do think, though, a lot of it probably has to do with these young players being on the field and wanting to play the defensive position along with the offensive position. But they don't hardly have a plan for this, and that goes along with the Angels organization. It doesn't seem like there's been a plan in the past few years, and I think that in this lineup, you need to come up with some sort of plan as to what you want to do and how you want to build this lineup out, because you have a lot of really good bats that need at-bats, young guys like Moniak that need at-bats. So use that DH spot that way and stop slotting in somebody because, well, he's a veteran. He's Miguel Sano, and we have to give him time. I think that we have to be over that, and we need to play the best player. Wash said he would, so play the best player in the best position every single day and stop giving a tip of the cap to somebody who's not great.
Yeah, and look, if they're going to have Willie Calhoun DH that many times, it wasn't as if Willie Calhoun was terrible, but then sign a full-time DH. Yeah. Then sign somebody who can be better than that, because Willie Calhoun was a minor league deal that they just picked up. And to be honest, Mike, if O'Hoppe, I understand the need for O'Hoppe behind the dish, Adele in the outfield, that sort of thing. But if I were going to draw a straight line from point A to point B, I know we talked about it last week and how even somebody like Adley Rutschman with all his DH starts is struggling, just like O'Hoppe has been struggling the last month and a half. I think that's the biggest indicator. I think it's workload. Yeah. And if you're not going to spread the wealth to guys like O'Hoppe and try to work in your best bats on a day where they need their feet, they get off their feet from the outfield or that sort of thing. And again, I think this all changes when Mike Trout tries to stay healthy next season and use that DH spot a little bit more. The Angels clearly, looking at these numbers, I think could have handled the DH spot way better than they did this season.
Thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. Now for your second listen, check out Locked On MLB. It's available on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. It's a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day.
Hey, give us a follow on Twitter at Locked On Angels and at Super Halo Bros on Twitter and Instagram. Mike, what do we have on deck for tomorrow's show?
Mike Trout said that he believes that this team could be really strong next season, and it's going to take this one thing. We're going to share that one thing, according to Mike Trout, tomorrow on Locked On Angels.
All right, looking forward to that conversation. No, it's not the Angels hiring Mike and John. He didn't say that, but I think that he was going to. It just got cut off. All right, friends, we hope you'll come back and join us for that conversation. Until then, my name is John, and that's my brother Mike.
And my name is Mike, and that's my brother John.
Thanks for being here with us, everybody, and we'll see you back here on Wednesday.